Hello everyone, Micah here, cause who else would I be? Guys, I'm so excited. I just completed the review to Resident Evil 2 Remake on my channel. I did the entire Let's Play, and before you see any of the review, I made a short video just to be silly because I'm a super mega Resident Evil nerd. But I do want to say, all of the footage that you're seeing is my own, as well as my voice, but all of the music and sound effects are not mine. None of those sounds belong to me. They all belong to the Capcom Corporation, but I just put them in the video to create more ambiance for you guys. So I did it just to be fabulous because, again, I'm a huge Resident Evil nerd. I totally love this franchise. It's one of my favorites in the entire world. And I know you guys are huge Resident Evil nerds like me, so I made this video with you guys in mind. Remember, I am not a professional. I am not an actor. I was just having fun. And special thanks to my beautiful wife, Christina, for taking the time out of her busy schedule to actually help me film this entire thing. So, I hope you guys enjoy my review, my little video, and I hope you also checked out my Let's Play because it's up on my channel right now. Now, with all that being said, you're about to enter the world of survival horror. Good luck. Hello? Focus, Micah. You got this. Oh no, it's him. I have to find Sherry.
Everyone's gonna die!
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Micah Let's Plays, and guess who I am? I'm the survivor horror star of this review for Resident Evil 2 Remake. I hope you guys enjoyed that intro. I put a lot of thought and care into it because I love Resident Evil, and I know you do too, so I made it with you in mind. So, before I jump into this review, you know how Micah gets down. I made an intro just for you. Enjoy! Wink!
Now loading Micah's Let's Play.
Welcome to your survival horror. Good luck. OMG guys, it is finally here. My review for Resident Evil 2 Remake. Oh my glob, it took forever and a day, but it is finally here. And I cannot wait. Now, as I always like to do, guys, I like to touch on a little history of the game's creation, my history with the game, and then I'm going to dive into Resident Evil 2 Remake proper, and I'm also even going to touch on the Resident Evil 2 original game. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, this game is a well-loved game in my heart. It's so special and near and dear to me, so let's jump right into this. So let's start with the timeline for Resident Evil 2. Okay guys, so in the original Resident Evil 2 game that came out way back in 1998, it was the sequel, or as some people would say, the perfect sequel to the original Resident Evil. That game came out back in 1996, and it was just an amazing game. Me and my family had so much fun playing it, and I'll touch on my history with that in just a second. But after the first game was a huge success, everybody loved it. It then went to the sequel, and the guy who was the director for the original, Mr. Shenji, decided to become producer in this version, and the new guy, Hideki, became the director for this game. Unfortunately, they kind of bumped heads a lot during the game's inception, and they originally had the original Resident Evil 2 was actually going to be called Resident Evil point 5, 1.5 or something like that. And they decided against it because they felt like the game was a little bland. I mean, some of the ideas were cool, but a lot of the things were a little bland and they wanted to make some changes. And what they did was nothing short of amazing. They even hired a screenwriter to help them write it and to make the game have a more Hollywood blockbuster feel, and they succeeded in spades. So, when this game came out, like I said, 1998, it was it was a second blockbuster. It was huge. Everybody loved it. I believe it went on to sell over 2 million copies, I believe, during its time. I could be wrong on that. But it did so well. Everybody loved it. I loved it. So, guys, when I first was exposed to Resident Evil, I was about, ooh, my goodness, I was like maybe 11 years old, and my eldest brother just moved back from Stockton, California, with him and his wife and his child, well, his ex-wife and his child. And they moved back, and he had this game called Resident Evil. And he only played a very small portion of this game. And he died playing as Chris Redfield on the stairs right before you go to the second floor when you're playing the first game. And it was so scary that none of us picked it up again. I mean, we literally left Resident Evil, the original, sitting on the shelves. We were too afraid to touch it. And then I'm a huge arachnophobe, so the fact they had spiders on the cover, I couldn't rock with that stuff. So, a few years went by, and I had a very good friend who's still my very best friend to this day, Corey Lewis. Corey, I know you're watching, so mwah, love ya. My best friend Corey introduced me and my brother Matthew to Resident Evil 2, the original. Now, when we first saw it, we were kind of like, okay, because at the time, the only other game we would play was like outside of fighting game was Tomb Raider. And my friend Corey said, no, I got a game for you that's going to knock your socks off. He brought the game over and he played, and he started with Claire Redfield. Not only did it start and ignite my love for her, but it also ignited a new passion within me, which was survival horror. Seeing Resident Evil again for the second time, but now more well realized because the new game had more, the mechanics were a little bit better, the graphics were sharper, and the preset backgrounds were even more defined than the original. And oh my god, me and my brother were just in love with this game. It was so cool. So after my friend Corey played the entire game, he played Claire A, Leon B for us. Oh my god, and in my head, that has always been the canon for how the game must be played every time. Even on my Let's Play of Resident Evil 2 Remake, that's exactly how I did it. Claire A, Leon B. Because that's how the story goes, man. So, after me and my brother experienced it, we saw it, we just love this game so much. And after that, we've been a fan of this franchise ever since, and we have not looked back. And seeing how the game has progressed into so many different iterations, how it was remade and redesigned several times, Resident Evil 2 is not only just the perfect sequel, and to a lot of people, it's the perfect Resident Evil game, and it's the best, in my opinion, the best of the franchise. But I know everybody else has their own opinion, but this is mine. So again, Resident Evil 2, oh my glob, I love this game so much. But now that we've talked a little bit about the history and my experience, let's touch on Resident Evil proper. 2 proper. So when you start the game with Resident Evil 2, you start off with Claire Redfield, the sister to the sexiest STARS member, Mr. Chris Redfield, and then you also play as a new cop, Mr. Leon S. Kennedy. Claire is there trying to find Chris, and Leon is there because it's literally his first day on the job. And what they discover is disaster and nightmare, and just, oh my glob, everything horrible. So, when you start the game with Claire, you find yourself in a diner, you're trying to get help and directions, only to discover that the diner is filled with zombies. Now, when you start with Leon, you find yourself on the mean streets of Raccoon City, only to find a body on the road, and the body's not dead, and you run into a little girl dressed in red, which was Claire Redfield, and she says the famous line of, "Don't shoot!" and Leon says, "Get down," and our adventure begins. Once Cleon, I'm leaving that in. Once Leon and Claire get separated, you have to make your way a mad dash throughout the streets of Raccoon City to make your way to the RPD, which is the Raccoon Police Department. In there, you find yourself inside of an extremely elaborately designed police station. The RPD actually used to be a museum before it became a police department. And throughout this entire police station, you run into Marvin, an unfortunate police officer who was bitten and slowly turns into a zombie, though he does try to give you a little bit of help and tell you to find survivors in the other rooms. And then you run into Police Chief Irons, who is actually rather very creepy and weird. You also run into the adorable Sherry Birkins, who's running away from her father, Mr. William Birkins, who's been horribly mutated. You run into the super sexy spy, which is Miss Ada Wong. You also run into Ben Bertolucci, who is a reporter who unfortunately dies. And each side character seems so well realized and so well fleshed out. You even run into Annette Birkins, which is Sherry's mother, throughout this game. And every time or every room you go through, there's a story that's being told within this game. And I just gotta say, it is absolutely fabulous. When I first played the game as Claire Redfield and I heard Sherry say, "Ah, someone help me!" and Claire runs after her, and it was just like, oh my god, I have to save this baby. Like, oh my god, she's a little girl. What is she gonna do against the zombies? So again, I was totally here for it. And again, I love one of my favorite lines of Claire Redfield is when she says the line of, "What's the matter? Don't you trust me?" And honestly, after she said that, Claire needed to be on a watch list. I'm just saying. But I just thought those lines were so iconic. They were not super, amazing acting, but it was so good for the time that it was. It was like a badass 90s cartoon or something. I'm serious. And then, after you beat the game with Claire Redfield, you discover it's not over. After you saved Sherry, gave her the vaccine, and saw her poor mother be mutilated, now when you play with Leon, you see what's been happening throughout your first playthrough with Claire. Now, as you run around with Leon, not only do you experience different parts of the games that Claire did not experience, now you run into the sexy and mysterious Ada Wong, and I love her so much because she's awesome. But anywho, guys, you run into Ada, and you uncover that she is the password to the first Resident Evil game, which was Ada and John, and she's looking for her boyfriend, so she claims. Leon, like myself, fall head over heels for her, and we run around throughout the RPD and the sewer system, and then the power plant of Raccoon City. After you beat the game with Leon, unfortunately our beloved Ada somehow dies and somehow comes back and saves you from the dreaded Mr. X, who has been following you around like some weird stalker throughout this entire game. And my god, I'm telling you, when I first beat the game with Claire first and then Leon, I was just like, oh my god, this is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I just imagine seeing more and more games come from this franchise. And trust me, there were plenty. But one of the things that I did notice about the game, because I did play the original Resident Evil 1 and then played Resident Evil 2, what I noticed with some of the game mechanics were a lot smoother when it came to running, moving around, shooting, and you experience limping for the first time, where you're struggling to survive just to get around the RPD. And I remember seeing Claire injured and trying to get away from a liquor, and I died, and I was like, oh my god, and on the screen it says you're dead, and I was just like, oh my god, I can't see Claire suffer like that. So it made me want to get better and better at the game. But again, guys, Resident Evil 2, I have to keep saying it, it is literally the perfect sequel, and in my opinion, the best game in the franchise. So now that I touched on a little bit of the original Resident Evil game and its story, now let's talk about the incredible remake that we all got last year in the year of 2019. Okay guys, let's talk about Resident Evil 2 Remake. I have to first say to the entire Capcom team, you guys did an outstanding job. We've seen Resident Evil be remake before with the incredible remake of Resident Evil 1. But Resident Evil 2 took it a step further. And oh my god, the photorealistic characters with Claire and Leon being reimagined, and to see how their stories were reimagined, making the story a little bit more streamlined, walking throughout the RPD and seeing this museum slash police station brought to life, encountering the liquors that have been so beautifully realized, and the zombies, how creepy and eerie they are as they slog throughout the RPD, and then encountering my worst nightmare, Mr. X, as you hear his footsteps as he approach, and you're wondering what door is he going to come through, what corner is he going to come around, and as the song says, X gonna give it to you, because man, when I first saw Mr. X as he lifts up that helicopter and you hear that music start, oh my god, my heart was pounding. And the funny thing was, I didn't even play the game. I was watching Mr. Odd's channel as he played Resident Evil 2 Remake. Oh my glob, me and my wife, we were on the edge of our seats watching this playthrough of this game and seeing how beautifully it was reimagined. But then, earlier this year of 2020, before the pandemic hit, I purchased a PlayStation, which actually was a gift. Thanks, Mom, which was a gift to me. And I purchased Resident Evil 2, and that was my very first playthrough on this channel. Please go check it out. And mind you, it's a little funky because I was new at YouTube and new at editing and all that stuff, so ignore my little weird first episodes that are a little crunchy, but watch the entire playthrough, and I had so much fun playing this game. Again, the second Resident Evil 2, the remake, is it's just so beautifully done. It's such a great game, and the story was even more it was more fleshed out when you run into Police Chief Irons, when you run into Ada, and when you run into Sherry. The story is so well fleshed out, and it's so interesting and fascinating. Now, there are some setbacks to the game that I'll touch on in a minute, but a lot of the game's mechanics, the fact that you had defensive items that you got in the remake of Resident Evil 1, I was so glad we had defensive items, because unfortunately we didn't have the dodge like in RE3, but those defensive items, they came in a clutch for a girl and for Leon, let me tell you. And then on top of that, seeing how Ada's character was so well realized, and how they made her an FBI agent, and they had her in such a sleek, sexy design when you play as Leon. Very fascinating. And you see how in Sherry's version, you learn how her parents, again, she basically had a rough childhood. She was left on her own, and to have to escape from Chief Irons, I have to admit, that wasn't one of my more favorite parts of the game, but I will admit it was very intense. And it was very like, oh my god, I gotta hide, and it's like, oh my god, you gotta save this baby and keep her away from this crazy Chief Irons. So for me, again, it was a great game. I had a lot of fun playing it, and to complete it again as Claire A, Leon B was so much fun, guys. It's just such a good game. But now let's touch on some of the gaming mechanics and the story a little bit. I'm gonna dive in a little bit more, and then I'll give my overall grade. Now, with the story at large, I really like how you got to see what's really going on within the city, how the STARS office looked, and how Leon and Claire's story was a little bit more fleshed out, understanding when you run into Marvin and with either Claire or Leon, and understanding the difference of how Marvin treats everybody. Like when you run into him with Claire, he treats Claire with such care, like he's a police officer genuinely concerned for her safety. And then when you run into him with Leon, when you do play Leon A, you see how he is really Leon's, CO, his commanding officer, and he treats him like that. And I love the part where he says, "Rookie, if you see those things, you shoot or you run." And I thought that was so real, especially when you discover how Marvin got bit. And it's just so, oh my god, my heart when I had to put him down. Even though Leon in my playthrough doesn't know who Marvin was, but because I got to know him with Claire, it just hurt my heart to have to put a bullet in his head. I couldn't let him roam about because I knew eventually I would have to be coming back through that area, so I had to put my putty down. I had to put him out of his misery, but oh my god, guys, that was a really serious moment. And then again, playing with Sherry and seeing Sherry so well realized. And for those of you who don't know, Sherry was also inspired by Newt from Aliens. If you guys have never seen the movie Aliens with Sigourney Weaver, go check that movie out, then come back and talk about this review with me, because the scene where you see Sherry behind the thing and she's like, you're the one that's in danger, and like she's barely trying to catch her breath as she's trying to warn Claire that Mr. Birkins was behind her and he was looking for that goddamn rent that nobody wanted to pay. But when you see those moments, it makes it so like, oh my god, it takes you there. And then when you see Leon, when he first encounters Ada and she says that line of stay sharp and she shoots the dog, and it's just, those moments in the game were just stellar and so well realized, and the voice acting top notch. So good. And as you make your way again throughout the game and you run into Mr. X and you're constantly panicked, if you're not too careful, he can hear you. And if you are not like me, because I cleared out the RPD, I was not about to be running into zombies and lickers while running from Mr. X because I needed to run from him. Guys, it was just so intense hearing that music and hearing those footsteps as he was getting closer, and you knew once he got close, Mr. X was going to give it to you and do some serious damage. But again, the story is just amazing. When you get to the nest versus the recycle center, or no, the nuclear power plant or whatever it was in the original. But when you get to the nest and you see and you learn all of the interesting details about the G virus, also known as the Golgotha virus, and you see what Hunk and his team did, and the story is just so much more well realized. And then you run into the G adults, you see running throughout the sewer system. It's just utterly amazing. And when you beat the game and you see how Claire, Sherry, and Leon are walking down the street as they literally walk off into the sunset, the game is just utterly perfect, except for one glaring issue. And that is the part where you run into Annette Birkins and you fight Mr. Birkins for the third time in the laboratory at the nest after you grab the virus, after you grab the G virus, or you get the cure for the virus for Sherry, depending on who you play with. It's weird how you see Annette Birkins, you know, run, fake her death, then get up and run back out there again. That was the only glaring problem with this game, in my honest opinion. It was a little, it took you out of the game a little bit, because it was kind of like, wait, how could she do that? Honestly, I wish they would have done something else, but they didn't. But that's honestly my only issue with the game. That is literally my only issue. And it's just really different. And in the original, you also had like 4 different playthroughs with the game. That was also why, you know, Resident Evil 2, the original, was so well loved. And in this one, depending on who you pick first, that to me, it seems like that's the actual run. And when you play with the second character in the remake, it kind of seems like, here's what happens if you play with another character, versus it being more like a real fleshed out story. I mean, that was just my honest opinion, but it didn't take away from the story, in my opinion. I felt that it was really good. And again, being able to have this amazing story brought back to life and so well realized, to the entire Capcom team, thank you for this. It was utterly beautiful, so much fun, and I can't wait for my next playthrough, because I'm definitely going to play this game like several thousand times. But with all that being said, guys, I'm going to wrap this up and give this game my final score. Okay guys, I'm going to give you my final grade with Resident Evil 2 Remake. I'm going to be completely honest with you, this game is really just really good outside of that glaring issue. Honestly, it would have been a perfect 10 out of 10 for me, but because of that one issue that I had with the game, I'm going to give this a huge A. I think this game was well created, well realized. The mechanics were amazing. The story was really good. All of the characters I really liked. I liked how they were reimagined and fleshed out in such a beautiful, beautiful way. Again, guys, this is just one of those games that just it stands the test of time. The original Resident Evil 2 and the remake just they were just really the perfect sequels to an already amazing first game. So guys, I want to know, what is your thoughts and feelings on Resident Evil 2? Are you like me? Are you utterly here for it? Or are you like, yeah, I prefer RE3, or I'm waiting for the RE4 remake, which I kind of wish was called Veronica, but oh well, I'm not the ones in charge. But again, guys, this game was such a wonderful game. I had so much fun playing it. Please check out my full playthrough as I play with Claire, then Leon. You get to see the full story. And I just had so much fun with it, guys. It was just a blast. I had an utter blast. And also, check out my Resident Evil 3 remake Let's Play that I'm playing currently right now. So new episodes will be coming out, so stay tuned. Don't worry, Micah's got you covered. Okay, guys, I would be utterly remiss if I did not mention an incredible voice actor, the original voice actor to Leon S. Kennedy, Mr. Paul Haddad, passed away earlier this year. And I just want to say that he brought Leon to life in such a beautiful and wonderful way with his amazing line of 808 and then why doesn't anyone listen to me? And I loved his character so much. He's one of my personal favorites of the franchise, though my favorite character is Claire Redfield. But Mr. Leon was brought to life by Paul in such a beautiful way. And Mr. Paul, I know you're watching from above, and I just want to say to you and to your entire family, thank you for your phenomenal work. It was just an honor to hear your work while you were still here with us. So with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Again, I had a blast with this game, and I really hope you did too. And if you have played the original Resident Evil, that's a question I want to know. Have you played any of the original Resident Evil games, or are you just only playing the new franchises? I mean, the new addition to the franchises or the remakes. So let me know in the comment sections down below, because I want to know what your thoughts and feelings are on the original versus the new one. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed any of my content, do me a huge favor by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, leaving me a comment in the comment section down below, then do me another favor, hit the notification bell so you're always notified when I'm uploading a video and surviving horror just for you. Then do me another favor, wash your hands, wear gloves, wear a mask, use sanitizer, make good choices, be safe in the world today, because there's literally survival horror just outside these four walls and a roof. So be safe, again, because you are important to someone out there in this world, and you're important to me. So please, again, stay safe. Remember, all Black Lives Matter. I'm going to see you on the flip side, only because you live, think, and dream big, like Micah's always telling you. So, bye! Wink!